Welcome into episode number 3 of the Radioactive Paper Cuts podcast. My name is Josh Kennedy. I'm your host. And joining me today is a podcast host, a father, a husband, a Michigan Wolverine fan, and most importantly, coach, Cody DeLonge. How are you today?
I would argue most importantly, a Michigan Wolverines fan. Being father probably last on the list, but I appreciate the intro. You could have mentioned 6'4", 240, laser rocket arm. Those all would have been lies. So
I could have told you your win-loss record. It would have been hype. Well, if you guys don't recognize him, Cody is my often / always co-host on the Marvel Stuff podcast. So here he is. We're having fun on this one. Hey, Coach, you finally have permission to swear, so I'm happy for you.
Man, I have permission to swear all the time. Don't think that I don't. I just choose not to.
Yeah, we just hit episode 50 of the Marvel Stuff Pods. If you guys haven't heard it yet, go take a listen. But this is a different type of podcast. We're gonna have fun. So let's just jump right in there, Coach. What hero means the most to you and why?
So, I guess when we say hero, my first question back to you, as I steal your show and I start
you do all you got to do.
Is hero? Am I restrained to superheroes? Do I get to expand it to like whatever I decide it means?
I think the only rule would be fictional character.
It has to be a fictional character.
I will say that. Yep, I make up the rules. This is my podcast, and I just made that up right now. So there you go.
Okay. Good.
Not superhero though. It can be anyone else.
As long as it's fictional, it can be anyone.
It can be Sherlock Holmes for all I care.
God, I do love Sherlock Holmes. I'll go simple with my favorite video game character of all time and just say Commander Shepard from the Mass Effect series, almost only because it's an RPG, so he gets to just be me, the most badass version of me.
Well, that's pretty cool. I've actually never adventured into those video games, so give me a quick summary. What's good?
So Mass Effect, it's a space trilogy. It's 3 games. All made by BioWare, which you might recognize from games like Dragon Age, things like that. It's very story-driven, very choice-driven. It's a shooter, but it's not like an intense Call of Duty kind of shooter. You have, powers because you're in space and all that stuff, but it's mainly more about you got to make the choices that change the worlds around you, and you get to sleep with hot alien babes. It's all pretty good
Always
stuff.
A fun thing to have in a video game. I'm sure that those hey, they just redid those, correct? They
yes, the whole trilogy's been remastered, so you can get them on the PS5, PS4, or the PCs and stuff. So it's all out there to be explored.
Cody somehow managed to get a PS5, contrary to anything else that makes any sense.
It was many moons. It took me many moons to gather that, and I had to pay Walmart $13 for permission to have a chance at buying it, but it worked out. So,
well, that's ridiculous.
Money well spent.
Hey, man, I'm happy for you. I also want to upgrade to a PS5 eventually, but here we are, still rocking the Xbox One for right now. Got more important things coming up. Plus, it's pretty much impossible to find one of those. So, congrats to you. What brand of nerd would you say you deserve a PhD in?
What brand of nerd is that? I mean, you're asking what specific nerddom or yeah, I guess that's what you're asking.
A little bit. I mean, you could argue. I mean, you can dice it up any way you want. Because I would say that my PhD should be comic book characters, but there's DC and Marvel and Image and Dark Horse and all these other comic book things. So really, just take your pick, and I'll tell you if it's against the rules that I make up.
Man, I'm gonna break the rules because I would tell you. First of all, I would argue that I'm a jack of all nerddoms. I try to spread my nerddom to as many possible things as I can, which is why my answer would be something like Commander Shepard. But then I host the Marvel Stuff podcast.
Yeah, we do.
And my room is filled with Studio Ghibli pictures, which you can't actually see from this angle. So I don't know why I motioned to them as if they were visible.
Yeah, but we'll edit it in post. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll edit it in post. I would argue the single thing I'm the biggest nerd about is actually probably football and offenses and just like the minutia of how an offense runs effectively. It's like I've spent too much time.
I'm with you there. You and I have been sharing a fantasy football league for many years now, so I know exactly what you mean. I also have that weird side knowledge thing that's not necessarily a nerddom, but we could definitely qualify for PhDs.
Yeah, I don't know why I put so much effort into like learning an NFL. No one's ever going to ask me
Right.
why they pulled the guard. You know what I mean? Like nobody cares,
Uh,
but I still,
yeah, no
study
one's
it.
really going to ask me why I decided to change my tight end the night before. It's like, oh, okay, he did it. And then that's the end of it. So all those hours of
After
thought
it's
process you put into it, they're just like, oh, okay.
goes to nothing.
That's all it is. So
It's
you're
mostly
saying
nerddom.
football's the PhD, yeah?
Yeah, if I spend the most time and I know the most about, I would say it's football.
Well, that's kind of pushing the nerd label, I would say. It's more of a jock trait, but what do I know?
Yeah, that's fair. If I had to stick,
I'm kidding. No, you could
depending
totally
on
have
okay,
football.
I have plenty of nerdy answers.
I agree. Now, speaking of nerdy though, obviously that's what we're talking about on this podcast here. Do you remember the first nerd related movie you ever saw? And who you
First
saw it with?
nerd,
Anything like that?
the first nerd related movie I ever saw,
Yes.
and like really, I would say that I even remember was probably like all the way up to like Spider-Man 1. To be honest, like I don't really remember. 'Cause I probably saw Blade 3 earlier than that, but I don't really remember the first one. I remember seeing it more recently. I don't remember it from back then. It was probably that, even though I'm certain that I saw Batman, Batman and Robin at some point in my life before
Right,
I
right.
saw Spider-Man. But the first one that is a
Have a
memory of that time I watched it, it'd be Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, what does that character really mean to you then? Now that it was almost like your intro then. I mean,
Um, I didn't connect to Spider-Man as much as everybody else, other than I like respect the pop culture icon that he is. Those movies are fun and they're good
yeah.
movies, and
Hmm.
I liked them, but Spider-Man really was just more of a jumping off platform into other characters and other people that I
Right.
connected with more.
You and I have always kind of agreed on that front. We have other characters in Marvel that are our favorites, and then our younger brothers actually are both obsessed with Spider-Man,
Yeah,
so they
what a
can
bunch of
have it.
nerds. What a
Yeah, I
bunch
know,
of
right? Speaking of which, we're gonna get one of those guys on here. Oh, both of them. We'll see how it
Oh yeah,
goes.
let's hope so. They're definitely more entertaining than I am. That's for sure.
And I mean, we have a podcast. Where's their podcast?
That's fair.
Nowhere. Exactly.
You're true.
Okay. But let's keep it rolling though. Now that we're already digging in the memory banks here. Now, what is your first memory involving your nerddom or any nerddom? It doesn't necessarily have to be the one you chose.
I would say the first thing I can remember of like really diving in deep and like loving and like wanting to learn everything I could about it, um, probably came around. It would be football again, I would say, but I to avoid going into the jock stream world, I would say it was back when Dragon Age, the first Dragon Age ever came out. And if you don't know what Dragon Age is, it's a Lord of the Rings style world.
Mm,
It's dragons, it's wizards, it's knights, it's dwarves, all that kind of stuff. This is before I had ever read or watched Lord of the Rings. So Dragon Age was my first introduction into fantasy world, and I love it.
I was
It's
just gonna
so
say, did
good,
you go super deep into it? Because I know some people to this
dude.
day they go to Ren Fest every year. They're big fans of all that stuff.
I wish I did. I'll tell you right now. We just saw the LARPing from Hawkeye. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen Hawkeye, there's a scene that involves LARPing. I want to do it so bad. I think about it all the time, and I'm like, I just being a dad and all this stuff, and so I'm already spend too much
Oh,
time watching football every time I have a free minute, and I have too many video games I play. But if I could do anything, it would be to explore LARPing more and to just get to dive into that world, because Dragon Age, like you said, it was my first nerddom. I learned all about it. I could still recite the entire fake religion that is built within that game
okay,
as if
okay.
it
So
was a real
you're
thing.
deep cuts. Okay, that's fun.
Love it.
I never knew that about you. I didn't know Dragon Age was so important to you. But you hit
Love
on
it.
something. We're gonna go a little off book here though. You've got a daughter now, and I've actually got a daughter on the way. Woo, we're all very
I've
excited.
heard.
But
I've heard.
yeah, I'm sure you have. But I am just curious, like, what are you most looking forward to? Like, I've been thinking about it a lot on what cartoons I'm gonna rewatch and how old they have to be before I start showing them the MCU and things along those lines.
Yeah, I'm gonna. So I guess there's a few different things that come to mind, but the one that's the most truthful, and now I just feel like I've completely gone off the rails and turning it into a football podcast is that I tell everybody, they're like, oh, she's going to grow up to be a figure skater. Or maybe she'll grow up to do this or do that. Just long fingers. She's going to do piano. Nonsense. She is going to be the first head coach that is female at the University of Michigan. That is a fact. She is going to know offense like no one else in the world.
I'm
And
pumped on it.
she's going to just mastermind and revolutionize football.
She's going to take over from a senile Harbaugh? Is that what it's going to be?
You know, if he sticks around that long, that would be good for our program. That means we're winning. But it's definitely that is actually the first ad to, and I do say it, and I believe it's a legitimate possibility. Like, there's no reason if she loves, if she turns out to love football, it's a more realistic avenue than saying, oh, she's going to be a football player. Like, hopefully she wants to play a little bit when the size difference isn't that much. But that is one of the things. But the other thing I would say, to stick on the nerddom, and I'll kind of flash my camera around a little bit because I'm gonna say that it exists. I'm gonna prove it. I have my Studio Ghibli pictures.
Nice.
That I keep up and around. You can see Little Michigan back there.
That's the most decorated I've ever seen your attic, and I've been up there a lot.
Yeah, they're super. So Studio Ghibli is a studio of movies similar to what Pixar is here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But they're Japanese films. They have all been dubbed to English, which is how I watch them. I'm not a purist, I suppose, but I am a nerd about them. I love them. I made you go watch one with me in the movie theater.
I was just going to bring that up. You're actually the second person to mention anime and these type of things. And I'll say the same thing I said to Darius is just I've always had a respect for anime, but I've never gone diving into it myself. I've just saw it as like a cartoon of other countries kind of.
I can't get into the deep cut anime thing. I can only do the Dragon Ball Z thing.
Dragon Ball Z.
And I've seen every episode of that, and that's about
something.
I can't do it's too wacky. It's wild. I just don't get it. Digimon is like borderline,
Yeah, I don't know what you consider Digimon. I know it's just off-brand Pokemon if you ask me, but what do I know?
Which is just definitely a westernized version of anime. So yeah, that's not for me, but the movies themselves are like a good blend of the two. And I look forward to teaching Els all about those things and letting her learn the pure joy that I get from them.
Well, yeah. I mean, you get to be that kind of a shepherd into this nerddom thing, but who was that to you, would you say? Or what people? It doesn't even have to be one specific person, but who really got you into that nerd life?
That is an excellent question. Since I'm into it in so many different fields, I feel like there's a different answer probably for all of them.
Hey, we got all the time in the world. Tell me all the good things.
I would start with the basic, the football one. Obvious. This is my dad. It was just playing football.
Football coach. Hey, I know that guy.
Easy stuff. As for comic books and superhero stuff, probably as I got deeper into it, it's probably actually you. Because probably before I knew you, I had never picked up a comic book. I just kind of watched some of the big main blockbuster movies.
Mm-hmm.
So either you or Kevin Feige. And
you know me, so I'm going to take all the credit where I can get it. Now, I've talked about that many times. How I was a nerd before it was cool, and which is a dumb thing to say, but it's 100% a fact. I took my lumps back in, elementary school, wearing the Batman backpacks and the Star Wars T-shirts. I didn't care. I'm a full-blown, born and raised nerd, and that's my life.
I'll take the L's as I was a bandwagon jumper. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the most impressive thing that has been put to film in general. I think it's insanely impressive.
Have you seen Tarantino? No, continue.
No, I love Tarantino. But I know. I just think the entire idea of it has been one of the cooler things that have ever happened in pop culture, and that's easily and to me that sprungboard my interest in a lot of things.
Right. I mean, you just need somewhere to start.
I was big into the Marvel. It became big. It became blockbuster, and I was like, "What are other big, things in the world?" And then I watched Star Wars, and then oh my god, I love Star Wars now so much. And then the new ones come out, and I cry like a girl. And then the last one sucks, and now I hate Star Wars again. But then Boba Fett's gonna be sweet, Mandalorian. So
I'm learning all this new stuff about you guys. I just had Ray on the last episode, and they also are super new to nerddom. I was super surprised to hear that it wasn't until high school that they took an interest, which is like, man, all these guys are jumping
Yeah, they
on
seem
late.
like
But
they would have been all over it.
yeah, I'm excited to see it because that just means that the thing that I've always loved is gonna get all this. It's getting more and more projects, and that's all you can really hope for. I mean, I'd hate to be a fan of something dumb that's never gonna get developed into fun stuff to watch. You know what I mean?
But some people are the opposite. Some people are too cool for school, and they want to protect it, and they're like, nah, dude, you don't get it. I don't want you. I don't want you to like it because I want it to be special that I like it, kind of people. And those people
Yeah,
can
but
go
that's just
suck
a
a butt.
selfish way to do things. Yeah, really, it's just like, yeah, fuck you, dude. I think it's more about like you just want to share the wealth. I mean, you just said yourself, you were one of the many people that I've introduced to just superheroes and comic books, and I'm like, hey, this goes deeper. There are deeper and deeper cuts here. Listen to me. I've got a seventh tier Batman fact if you want to hear it.
So these are the arguments I make with all of this stuff. At the heart of any story of any time, it's no different, right? The
Right.
comic books are what the superheroes and they fly around. It's no different than mob movies or anything else. As long as it's good, as long as it
Mhm.
connects to people,
Right.
and as long as it's like storylines of human emotion. I mean, sometimes superheroes and other fantasy things aren't technically human, but they still connect to the same things. That's their whole point, and they're all good. That's video games. That's why I play Mass Effect and Dragon Age 500 times, because they just do such a good job of human emotion and human storytelling. And
And just
it doesn't matter
storytelling.
that they're superheroes or they're witches or they're wizards or anything. Like, it still preys on the same story beats as more
Right.
high class things.
100%. Yeah, that's the weird thing that I've kind of
I say
noticed in
that, but I love
society.
Godfather, for the record. It's my favorite
Right.
movie of all time.
We've been society's obviously getting more and more used to it, but it's weird. There's like this stigma that's been in people's minds since comic books in the 30s, where it's like, oh, that's just the silly thing that was added to the newspaper. And exactly like you said, all these guys are flying around. But then there are some like really talented writers writing crazy comic book storylines that are
Mhm.
then getting adapted to film, and then the director gets credit. I'm like, he almost went verbatim from the comic book. Like, a perfect example is Watchmen, which I have nothing but respect for Zack Snyder, but everyone loved that movie, and then later the show, and it's all really just straight from that first graphic novel. So it's just you got
That
to
graphic
go
novel is
back to your
wild.
course material. Yeah, it's fun though. It's one
It's
of
a
my favorite
wild,
ones for sure.
wild story. Very, and I think it spawned a lot of things.
Right.
All
Well,
right, I'll let you continue. Question
yeah.
9.
No, you're good. I'm having fun. So, what would you say that your nerddom plays in your life, like a role? Is it something you go back to for nostalgia?
Far
Is
too much of a role. It would be the answer, Josh.
so
It
closer
plays
to
too
an
much of a
obsession
role in
type of
my
deal?
life. I should be downstairs with my daughter right now, but I'm up here talking nonsense with you like a big dumb face.
Hey man, we do it
Um,
every week.
I
Catch
know,
us
and
on
I
the
do it
Marvel
every
Stuff
week.
podcast.
You
Yeah.
clown. It's huge. It really is. You asked, what role does it play? It plays the role of de-stressor and
100%.
something to like reset the day. Jenny argued with me one day that I'm a video game addict because I feel the need to play it every day, and she's probably right. I probably am addicted to these things because I do feel like I need a little bit of something. I need to either
I'm
watch Hawkeye just to like, okay, I got to see the continuation of the story. I feel better. I turned on Kingdom Hearts, and I got to play a little bit and fight these monsters. I continued the story. I feel a little better.
yeah,
It's
I mean,
like I always have a book that I want to see the next chapter to, and that's how I feel about most things I'm really nerd connected to.
yeah, I'm 100% with you. It's just I've never been much of a gamer, but even myself, I'll throw on a video game at the very end of the day. My wife goes to bed a couple hours before I do, and I just take those couple hours. I mean, I don't have a kid yet, so I mean, this could probably change, but I guess we'll see. But it really is just
It's
a
right there.
de-stressor. Yeah. One handed, it'll be fine.
Yeah, babies are
But
small.
you need something, man. It's just life's stressful, and you're just always thinking about things. That's just the human way of living. So you gotta find your ways to de-stress things because it's super important. And I wouldn't call it an obsession, more of just a necessity sometimes. But why don't you give me a deep fact about any of your nerddoms, or give me a couple,
Oh
just
my god,
something
I'm gonna
that
give you
people can.
so many facts.
All right, well let's make it fun where the listeners can bring it up at a party or something
Okay,
where it's
so
not too
it's
deep,
gotta be something worth
worth
bringing
knowing.
up,
Yeah.
something worth knowing. So, okay, um, let's start with The Witcher. Witcher is a
Ooh,
great show on Netflix. It's
foreshadowing.
a phenomenally great. Oh yes, foreshadowing. I do plan on doing a breakdown of Witcher, and Witcher season 2 is coming out. I hope I get to talk about that a ton.
Oh, we're gonna plug it all at the end of this episode, but
Yeah,
continue.
love it. But if I a little fun fact about The Witcher, not only is it an incredible video game series, but if you wanted to impress your friends or you're kind of like, oh, yeah, let's have an interesting Witcher fact, I would tell them that the Witcher show on Netflix was
Hmm.
entirely spearheaded, produced, created, all by Henry Cavill himself.
Yeah, it
Superman is
was.
a huge Witcher fan. He started with the games first, which is interesting, and then he went back and read the books. I have
Hmm.
still not read the books. I've watched YouTube videos
On the
countless
books.
hours, probably
Yep.
60 hours worth of people telling me what's in these books, and I refuse to read them because I'm a
You should
dongest.
just get the audio books,
I
man.
know, but then I just like the way they when you watch YouTube videos. This is a
It's
side
more
tangent, but I think
enjoyable.
it's
Yeah.
I because they will like here's a YouTube video. It's all about this character and his story.
Hmm.
And like here's a video about like this chunk of land and its story. And if you listen to different YouTube videos all around, it all kind of connects and you're like, oh, I get it now. But if you just listen to the story, you have to connect it in your own mind, and that's nonsense.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a
but
super fun fact though. 100% fact. I recently found out about that as well. But might have even been you that told me that. But Henry Cavill, just he's super jack guy, handsome, and a lot of people want him to be James Bond. He just seems like the
yeah,
coolest guy in the room, and it turns out he's as big of a nerd as us. In fact, he's even more so because he's producing a show on Netflix and starring in it himself.
yeah. So, I'll give you one more fact. I'll go Studio Ghibli on you.
I love it.
Because not only is it's great, so not quite a fact, but an interesting totem to go with Studio Ghibli is that they are by far the most highest grossing films in all of Japan.
Yeah.
So imagine if their Avengers was like a weird cartoon that was drawn. But a weird fact about the guy who makes them, he one time his most famous movie is Spirited Away,
Hmm.
which is probably if anyone's ever heard of any of these movies, that's probably the one you've heard of.
Well, yeah, you had me go to a movie with you, and turns out I had only seen Spirited Away out of the whole Studio Ghibli
Yes,
catalog, so I got to experience Howl's Moving
Howl's
Castle,
Moving Castle.
Howl's Moving Castle. Yes, it was a trip for sure, but
That
I
movie's
enjoyed it.
super trip. I love it. So two fun facts about Spirited Away. Number one, the main girl is the same one. What's her name from Lilo and Stitch? Oh my God, Lilo.
Lilo.
Oh my God, I'm such a clown.
That's
So that's the
funny
same
because
girl.
I never would have I put two and two together, but now that you say it, I'm like, those voices sound identical.
Yeah, fun fact. Which is another fun little interesting figure. I watched Spirited Away. Like, hey, that's Lilo.
That's Lilo.
People would know. But the other fun fact that I think is interesting because it speaks to his nature. About 2/3 the way through the movie, maybe 3/4 the way through the movie, this girl like gets on a train to like go across the lake to like confront some other evil witch or something like that.
Right.
Is only like I said, not even quite 3/4 the way through the movie. If you ask the director and the writer of this movie, he would say, and he has said it in multiple interviews, he goes, "Yeah, for me, that's about when the movie's over." He goes, "I don't really,
You're
the
the
rest of the movie's
director.
great, but he goes, for me, that's definitely when the movie ended." And he said it because he said when he was a kid, that big moment of his life where he felt like he had finally grown up and could handle the world was when he took a bus on his own. So he wrote that into the movie, and to him, that was the end of her growth. She had grown as far as she needed to. He had just continued the movie so that way it would make
Yeah, I
sense.
was just gonna say you almost have to. He would have gone like full indie film ending, which I appreciate indie film endings like that, where it's just like there's no real conclusion. You just are left to your own devices to really decide
Yeah,
what's going to
because
happen to the character.
it is interesting if the movie would have ended there because it is the end of her growth arc, but it's definitely not the end of the story that's being told, which is always an interesting dynamic in a lot of movies and shows. But there's a couple interesting facts. In case,
Yeah, those are fun. Those are so much more fun than our other guests. No, I'm just kidding. Those guys
yeah,
had
you
some fun
guys, they
facts
suck.
today.
That's fine. That's why they don't.
But
have
I do have one more question for you, but I think I want to save it for the final little bit of this podcast. So we're gonna
Okay.
plug right now. Let's
Gotcha.
Cody here, obviously, Coach DeLonge. He is the co-host of the Marvel Stuff podcast. We are available on all platforms, dropping every Monday at 8 a.m. I make sure of it. And go ahead, Coach. You can do the big reveal on what we're going to be starting up here.
Yeah. The big reveal is that I am now the head coach of the University of Michigan. It's been super exciting knowing you. I'm going to have to
so
leave
it's
the
going to be
podcast. My time will
a
be
dynasty now. So
Yes.
you're gonna be the coach, and then your daughter's going to take over. First ever father to daughter. I like that. That's a good plan.
Yeah,
But
I wish
in other
that,
news,
wish that was true, but unfortunately, that part's not true. What is true though, is I'm excited to get to talk. Like I said, we talk about Marvel all the time, and I love talking Marvel and I love talking superheroes, and Hawkeye's super great. So I'm pumped when we get to review this latest episode. Which have you watched yet?
No, I'm gonna watch it as soon as we're done here.
Such a clown. But with your little addition here, I get to expand my nerddom. I get to talk about The Witcher. So we're hoping to sometime this sometime soon. Maybe you would have already seen it by the time this episode comes out. Who knows? We will drop. We'll be having a review of the season 1 of The Witcher on Netflix, and I'll get to give you guys a little backstory that helps make it make sense. But then I get to review season 2 as it kind of comes out, which I am so excited for because that's like I can't wait for that show to come out. So I'm super pumped about that. And
like
I'm
you said there,
always pumped about Marvel stuff.
Oh yeah, always pumped for Marvel stuff. Definitely check that out. But part of the reason why I even started this new podcast is one, I want to interview my friends and family. I think it's fun stuff. I'm gonna get some other content creators on here, get to talk about themselves, cross promote their stuff. But a lot of it's just Marvel stuff is such a fun show, but it's also limiting sometimes because we're kind of left to only talk about Marvel things. We don't want to disappoint people by talking about things that our fan base might not necessarily care about. So we're starting up a new thing over here. I haven't fully decided what the segment's going to be called. I might just say, hey, this is streaming stuff. And right now we're doing The Witcher. And then later we're going to do Peacemaker, which by the way, that's the next one I want to do for sure. Following The Witcher. But next week, well, actually previous week, this episode right here is going to be released probably end of December, so you will have already heard our Witcher review, but we're going to be doing jump back and go see our season 1 overview. It's going to be fun. Coach has got some fun facts, and then we're, like Cody said, we're going to be doing 12/17 is the premiere of season 2 on Netflix. So probably the following week we're gonna do weekly or however many episodes they release to start with. I don't know how Netflix does it. They used to do full seasons, but I think they've adjusted that since.
I think they change it show by show. I think certain shows they release all at the same time, and certain shows they don't.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, more importantly, if it's going to be one episode at a time, that's how the streaming stuff.
I would bet it is.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think was one episode at a time.
I think Netflix is finally realizing that like it was fun while it lasted doing the full season, but they really stay within the public view a lot longer if they do week by week. So people like us can talk about the newest episode as opposed to the entire season as a whole.
I should have brought up Great British Baking. That if you want to talk about a nerd for nerd things, Great British Baking is a show worth nerding out about.
Yeah,
we just finished last season. Oh my god, I'm so pumped about it.
Go check out the streaming stuff episode of the Marvel Stuff podcast, and we got going a little bit on the British Baking Show. But let's wrap this up. I got one final question for you, Coach, and this one's important. So don't say anything dumb, or say something dumb so I can make fun of you and then say a real answer.
Sound like me.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it. But what gives your life meaning, Coach? It doesn't have to be related to nerddom, just anything. What makes you feel like life is worth getting up in the morning? What's good?
What gives my life meaning? There's a lot of things in life that bring a lot to life. But if I was going to be honest, the thing that brings most meaning to my life is, I guess you would call it the mission that God gives all of us, not to alienate people, but if you want my honest opinion, it's right. I believe that there is a God, and I believe He put us on this earth to do something, and his most repeated mandate is just to love other people. And so the thing I think about the most, and I most often try to do, is I most often am trying to love other people to the best of my ability. Sometimes I do that through trying to be funny and lighten the mood. Sometimes I do that through shared experiences and getting excited with them. I get that through just sharing art. I think art is a huge part of like why humans are such a unique species to the world, and I think I want people to appreciate that art. And so that's the most meaning I get out of life is God gave me a mission that's to love people the best I can, and to hopefully that will help other people love other people the best they can. And that would be a sweet legacy to do to change the world just a little bit.
Just a little bit of time. Yeah, that's always
Um,
the mission, man. Leave the world a little better than when you leave it a little better than when you got there, type of
I
deal.
know.
We're doing our best. Go listen to the Marvel Stuff podcast. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
exactly. I think the Marvel Stuff podcast is probably the most impactful thing
I mean, that gives
for
my
most
life
of
meaning.
humanity. I would say. I would argue we could probably solve most political issues
Yeah,
if you
100%.
just listen to the Marvel Stuff podcast.
No, but actually, that's really it's a sentimental thing to say that caring for others, it's super important. I really hope that people take that message to heart, and
I know, but why am I such a jerk to people then? Why do I
I,
always backhanding
I don't
everything
know,
they say?
Coach. What do
Just
I
undercut them
know?
for
You
humor? What a dongus. What a
you do
fucking
your best,
asshole.
man. Yeah. Hey, man. We all got our mission. But thank you so much for giving me your time today. We will be, recording our other podcast all the time, but this one was fun. Glad we got to talk about ourselves a little bit. Anything in closing there, Coach?
Yeah, dude, I'm awesome. And if you guys wanted to know how awesome I was, you could just ask. But this is a good way to learn about me. Really, I think you should probably just pivot the entire idea of your podcast
Mhm.
into just getting to know me more.
Okay,
I
so
think
just
I think your audience would really appreciate
have
it.
a
So there's something to
weekly
think about.
episode. Just interview the coach. That's all
Yeah,
I do.
I think it's worth exploring at least.
Hey, man, I
We'll
know
let the numbers speak for themselves.
I'd have at least one viewer every week. I know that for a fact because you just love hearing about yourself.
God damn it, that's right.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of the Radioactive Paper Cuts podcast. I'm Josh Kennedy, and you guys have a good one.